up, you beautiful nerds? I am Wyldfyre1. This is Nerds the New Sexy Entertainment, the podcast. And this is episode 178. We're getting closer to the end of the season. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest this podcast episode. And you are, sir.
I'm LaserKid. Hi, everybody. Been here a couple times before.
Yep, and we're going to talk about X-Men 97. Came out, like a few months ago.
A couple months ago. It was earlier in this year.
Yeah, as we're recording this, this is the end of September as we're recording this, and it came out a couple months ago. It's just time we talked about it. This is one of those things, like, I had a whole list of things to talk about this season, and that was one of them. And I don't think anyone else on the crew has really seen it. And me and LK started discussing it. I'm like, you know what? Come on the show. Let's do this. Let's talk about it. I'm going to warn you now, some of my memory on this is going to be foggy because I watched it when it first came out.
As did I.
And this week and the week before, I've been telling myself, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. Life got in the way. I had to do shit for work. I had to do shit for home. It just didn't happen. So we're going to discuss our favorite parts, some moments that we enjoyed, and things that we did and didn't like.
Well, with X-Men 97, what I really like is it picked up exactly where the old show ended off, with Xavier being taken out by the Shi'ar because he was, deathly injured, and Magneto having given up on a major attack to help Jean Grey reach out to the Shi'ar, magnifying her powers. So Magneto gave up on his attack to save Xavier. So we already had kind of a start with Magneto kind of turning over a new leaf, as it were. That's great. It makes sense. It is a character with who he is. Character. Magneto straddles that line between being a good person and being an evil little shithead. He kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, he's what's the word? He's chaotic in that aspect. You don't know if he's doing the wrong things for the right reason.
That would be something that our buddy Archangel would say. Yes.
Yes, he's doing villainous shit to get his point across.
He has a good vision, but the way he wants to get there is hell.
Yeah. In what?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I say good vision, not entirely, because he also wants to basically genocide humans, which is not great, but like Charles, he wants to end the suffering of the mutants. That's not a bad goal.
No. I mean,
he wants to get there is terrible.
That aspect is just, it's a lot like real life politics, which we generally don't touch, but in this case, it's okay.
The parallels between Xavier and Magneto and, say, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X is palpable.
Yeah, very much so. And Professor X disappeared poof into space. Everyone thinks he's dead.
Yep. Everyone except for the X-Men. They all know. But yes, everyone thinks that he died, which he would have, so it's not an unreasonable thing to say.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Oh, we sent him into space. The aliens took care of him. Who's going to buy that?
Took care of them. But see, this is the thing, and I probably should have started off with this. I never really watched X-Men back in the 90s. Like, I was I'm a DC boy. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the Marvel comics and some of the X-Men, because when I was in school, you remember this.
Oh yeah.
We didn't go to school together, but you were at the same time. That the X-Men were huge. They were huge.
It's because of that cartoon. But
couldn't. Well, I mean, even then, like the trading cards and all this other shit. Like,
yep. Oh yeah, I've got X-Men Series 2 cards.
I remember going to school and people were just. I got to the point where it was oversaturated to me growing up.
Oh so yeah, I can totally see that.
So I just got so sick of it, I never watched it.
On the other hand, for me, I grew up on this show. Now, I watched the first several seasons of the show like religiously, but at some point I did fall off. I missed a couple of the seasons, some of the late seasons.
Well, it was also during a time when we were growing up. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I was thinking about this the other day. There's a point, like, when do young adults blossom into like adulthood and then stop doing things like watching cartoons or playing with toys? When does that happen? It happened like between 10 and 12 for me. And that was about the time.
Much later for me because I'm a giant dork.
Nah, that's okay. I mean, it doesn't mean I didn't collect. It just meant that
I collect. I know that I played with toys well into my teens, and I definitely collected like crazy. I still do.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with collecting. There's nothing wrong with playing with toys either.
No, hey man, if you're having fun.
Hey, I used to make little movies with my toys when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess you can say it was still playing with my toys.
Yeah, what I do these is I'll just set up little scenes and like, if you're like, hey, this is a little scene, and I can enjoy the scene.
Yeah.
But I don't quite do what I used to. Like, I used to tell like stories and shit with them, and like put them on adventures and stuff. So, things kids do.
And that's probably something like, as far as to answer my own question, instead of playing with toys and stuff, I went into writing. I ended up using my imagination for
That's what I did too.
For like writing books and doing things like that. But so yeah, I'm assuming that's what happened to you when you fell off of watching X-Men.
Well, I still watch stuff like late into high school. I was still watching Digimon and Power Rangers and that shit.
I watched the what's that called, the Pokemon cartoon when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know when I fell off the X-Men cartoon, but for some reason I thought it had ended.
And
but it hadn't, and I didn't know that.
Kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It kept going, but a lot of people fucking forgot about it.
Exactly like Ninja Turtles, because I went over to CBS and nobody knew. I didn't. And then I found it. I actually found Ninja Turtles late, and I'm like, oh, this is still on?
And Ninja Turtles went into like season 6 or something. I don't quote me on that, but 10. Okay, 10. That's my point. Like, it went so far, people, and they squeezed every little. They pulled a Disney. They squeezed every little bit they could out of that.
The last season of the old Ninja Turtles was in '96.
Wow. See, I had no idea.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I was in high school.
I was in 8th grade.
I was 96. I was a sophomore. So of course, I fell off of it. Well, I fell off of it.
To the point. So was X-Men, because X-Men 97 is called that because what if it
97? Yeah.
97? So X-Men was also going that far in. Now, I did see the finale of the original X-Men because they advertised it. Okay. Fox Kids made a big deal. It's the final episode.
Well, Fox Kids was Fox Kids too, you know?
Yeah, and I'm like...
It thrived.
I'm like, it's still going. Oh, shit, I gotta see this finale. So I did see the last episode when it aired. And it was a very satisfying conclusion, in my opinion, at the time.
Okay.
But when we got the news, a year or so ago, X-Men 97's coming, I'm like, more? Ooh. And honestly, I don't feel let down. I really enjoy the transition this show took.
I like what it did.
The early parts were more connected to the tone and feel of the original show, but it slowly ramped up the maturity until it basically hit fever pitch. But it does what the old X-Men show did. It takes existing comic book storylines and twists them around and changes them up a little bit to fit its own universe. Yeah. And it does a good job doing. There's a couple of the storylines here. The first one is the good guy Magneto storyline, which is straight out of the 80s, which we were kind of leading into there. Turns out Xavier willed the school to Magneto.
Yeah, and after Xavier disappeared or died, however you want to look at it, yeah, he did, and that was kind of, for me, that was like, what the fuck? Like, a lot of the characters that were in the school were like, what the fuck? It's just along all this. Yes. So, and I like that. That was a cool what the fuck moment, because it also set up a really cool like redemption arc for Magneto.
It did. One that I felt he lived up to very well.
Yeah, which of course, for those of you who watched it, at one point Magneto falls off and goes batshit crazy again. But there's he went that way for a good reason. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I hate to say this. I hate to say this. I would have went the way of Magneto if I would have tried to be the good guy in front of him, and then like.
And then you get the result he got.
And then they got the result he got, and then he's in court. Like, I would have been like, look, bitch, I could kill you right now, but I'm not. Look at what I'm doing. I'm not. Yep. I'm not. I wouldn't have had the God complex Magneto had, but.
No, but. Yeah, no, I don't like what he did, but but I get it.
Yeah.
I understand it. But we'll get to that, and that's. What I really liked was early on was fan service to show. They referenced the freaking X-Men video games from the time period.
Oh, yeah.
They had the freaking Sega Genesis, and then they did the fighting game things. It was totally Children of the Atom, which is available now. Thank you, Marvel and Capcom.
I thought that was cool. You're talking, and that was kind of a cool little. The one you're talking about was like a little like side episode, right? With Jubilee.
It was with Mojo, Jubilee and Mojo.
Yeah, which was kind of cool.
When hey, Mojo's always hilarious. But the early episodes were a lot like that, but they also had the storyline revolving Madeline Pryor, which, wow, that's a callback to 80s, but it's also important because it's the origin story for Cable. And Cable was in the old X-Men cartoon, all over it.
Mm-hmm.
All over it. Now, here's the fun part. Cable knew that there was a traitor in the X-Men that caused his horrible future, but he didn't know who it was. And based on the way this one ends, they're gonna follow through with that because do you know who it was?
No.
Onslaught.
Huh.
Xavier. Xavier was the traitor because he turned into Onslaught.
Oh, okay, I see. I don't get the reference because it's before 97 because that's where I watched it.
Well, no, the Onslaught storyline's a comic only thing up to this point. Like that never happened in the cartoon yet.
Okay.
The seeds for the Onslaught storyline are there, but they haven't used them yet.
Yeah.
Although, based on what I've heard, they were going to do that, but now they're not, which is unfortunate.
Well, let's also give the voice actors in this some credit because they did. I think some of them came back, and some of them
most of them came back. Not all those.
Some of them couldn't. Some of them have passed away, sadly, and
yep.
So, but the ones that were there were fucking immaculate. All of them were.
Wyldfyre1 is the same one. I'll tell you that right now. And oh man, he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it.
I was very impressed. Oh
yeah, the whole voice cast is top notch all the way around, including the recast.
Yeah,
they did a good job. Are great. The recasts are great. But yeah, we have the whole storyline with Madeline Pryor and being used as the Goblin Queen. Screw you, Mr. Sinister. We have that whole storyline play out very, very faithfully. Not as screwed up and it gets worse in the comics, but they got the gist of it pretty well.
I'd imagine it gets pretty fucking bad in those comics.
I mean, she literally calls on the powers of hell in those comics.
Okay.
Like the Goblin Queen in the comics, she's literally like a Hell Queen. And then she also gets to Havoc, which is Scott Summers' brother, and turns him into the Goblin King, and they're both evil, and it's a mess.
I know that there's a big like clone thing in this one, which
yeah, well, and that's who Madeline Pryor was. That's right from how it started. Is that in the comics she was a clone, and the reason for that was the Dark Phoenix storyline.
Yeah.
The Marvel editors at the time did not want to bring Jean Grey back to life after the Dark Phoenix because she did evil things as Dark Phoenix, and they didn't want her to let her get away with that. Her death was the cost of the evil she did as Dark Phoenix. Mm-hmm. The editors were steadfast that you can't bring her back because of that. And so the writers decided they were going to make a clone, and that's Madeline Pryor. Now, the big difference in the comics is they always knew it was a clone.
That makes sense. Yeah, this one was a plant.
This one take over. Was a surprise. Now, here's what's the same, though. When the real Jean Grey does come back because of shifting editorial opinions, Scott Summers left Madeline Pryor and her baby Nathan right to Jean Grey. And that had the exact same effect.
And honestly, I kind of like that. I thought that was kind of
too.
It was dramatic.
And this is also why I will never forgive Cyclops, because, like, dude, you have a wife and child. Get over your crush with Jean Grey. You made a life. You're abandoning people who you're responsible to. Screw you.
It was a good dramatic turn for the series.
It is. Absolutely.
In my opinion, the first few episodes started off slow. It was kind of like, hey, get to know these guys again, and it worked for what it was.
It's a connection piece, and I think it's important because we didn't know what to expect out of X-Men 97, which is clearly made for people like you and me who grew up with the original, either actively or less actively.
Well, and also let's also put out that X-Men 97 was put out by Disney.
Yeah,
which
Marvel,
which
they own Marvel now.
which Disney is very hit or miss depending on who they use and who's writing and what have you. And we can we can go on a whole tangent about that
For days.
because of other shows and other series and
Other things we might talk about in the near future.
yeah, other things we'll talk about maybe next podcast that
maybe.
yeah, so Disney is very hit or miss. And so like watching this, I went in clear-minded like I try to do with these shows. And I'm like and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm just gonna watch this and come in as a new viewer and see where it goes. And the twists and turns were entertaining. The voice acting was good. The acting in general was good. The animation was good.
The music is amazing.
The music was, yeah. Even the I want to say they remixed the original theme. You know,
they did. They absolutely did. By the way, we need to get you to watch the original series now so you can connect in.
I might have to. I've trust me. I've been thinking about it, but that's one of those like what 7 fucking season long series.
It's like 6 or 7.
That's a commitment.
It is a commitment, but it's not as bad as you think. Like you'll get through it pretty fast.
No, I mean I watched all of the Clone Wars, so.
Oh yeah, no, this ain't shit to that.
And that was like 12 seasons, or so.
Oh yeah,
but
we've talked about that in the past.
Yeah, we've already had a podcast on Clone Wars, and you want to talk about a series that started very slowly and really found its stride. That's it. But yeah, the X-Men. This was good. Even the slow start was good. My biggest complaint was the slow start, and it really wasn't much of a complaint. You know what I mean?
No, and I think it was needed to bridge.
Yeah,
it was a bridge between the high optimism of the '90s and the way the show ended, and where they wanted to take it.
And then
and I think that's the best place to go next is the Genosha story because
yeah, because I was just about to mention the death of a certain character, and
what kills me in particular about that is it's the same voice actor and it's the same version I grew up with. Oh. That one, I know for you, it probably didn't hit as hard.
It hit me, but it probably didn't hit me as hard as you guys.
It's not just that it's Gambit. Like you've dealt with comics. You know how about there's like a million different continuity. So like Gambit dying would always suck.
But how he died. It's how
not even just that too.
And the lead up.
It's this Gambit. It's the Gambit that people like me grew up with. I met this Gambit when I was like 12 years old.
Yeah, that it's like losing a friend at this point.
Exactly.
And I get that. And
yes, the way he went out like a boss.
Well, there was a lead up. Him and Rogue, right? Him and Rogue are like hot and heavy throughout the whole thing, and then like all of a sudden Rogue is
throughout the whole show.
And then Rogue is like all into fucking into fucking Magneto. I guess that was the thing. And like I was pointing at the camera. I was pointing at the television, cursing Rogue out because I was like, "Make your fucking mind up. Make your mind up."
Rogue and Gambit had a whole huge romance throughout.
Yes, I know. I do know that.
So I was mad at her too. I'm like, you've had this romance for how long? And you're gonna go, oh, but Magneto.
He's willing to let you touch him. He's willing to like, be in pain for you. And the first Magneto comes along, and he's like, and she's like, okay.
Rogue makes a lot of unfortunate decisions throughout this whole show.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm talking shit. I don't hate her.
No, I don't either.
I get where she's coming from.
I get annoyed with her because I know she can be better than she was being in this whole show.
But she was very confused, and then she imagine that she ended up choosing Magneto at one point. She did, but she didn't, and then she didn't again. Yeah.
And then she's like, nope, never mind. I'm going with Remy.
She ping ponged back and forth, and it was fucking ridiculous.
She did, and it was.
But one point, at this point, Remy thought she chose Magneto. Just watch me die! I'm gonna save everybody! And he does! And he goes out in like the best fucking like heroic way possible, like an X-Man.
The whole place comes under attack by Sentinels.
Oh.
And they got all fight together. She starts fighting with him together, like they make up before he dies.
Yeah, more or less.
And they're fighting side by side, and they're being all cute together, and it's really adorable. And as they're making up and fighting, they're fighting this huge sentinel, and it just cannot get taken down. It cannot get taken down, and it impales him.
And yeah, he was kicking ass. He was doing a good job, and then just out of nowhere, like dead, and you're like, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm not even a huge Gambit fan, but I was sucked into that.
But I'm not a big Gambit fan, but this is the Gambit I grew up with, so it still hits.
I was sucked into that at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was there. I was like, oh come on, you and Rogue gotta, you guys gotta like fucking make this happen, and then he's dead.
And then he's dead. Yep.
I got teary eyed. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh yeah, shit.
No, it got me too. It got me too.
And then Rogue
a lot.
Rogue goes just spiraling. Spiraling.
Oh, yeah. At least he goes out with a literal bang. He's like, oh, you're gonna pay me? I'm gonna use my power on that and connect to you, and we're all gonna explode.
He's like, oh, you fucked up now.
The name's Gambit. Remember it.
Yep, remember it. And that was fucking awesome. And
that was literally the episode title, which
then he died. Which was, like really I know a lot of people, like 1,000 nerds screamed that day.
Oh yeah, no, I was crying.
I have a feeling in season 2 he'll come back. I'm using air quotes.
Even when he died, I had that in the back of my head. It's comic books.
Yeah.
Even the more adult oriented comic books, nobody stays dead.
No one. Also, it's Disney.
I know.
So I have a feeling that they're gonna be like, oh, Time Stone or some other shit.
Oh, there's gonna be some time travel bullshit.
Something's gonna happen.
The whole season ends on time travel bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's right. And something's gonna happen, and then Rogue's gonna have her fucking happy ending. She's gonna have both her men somehow. Yeah. And another really good scene. And I know I'm moving up forward.
Yeah, we're going all over.
Well, it's kind of.
If you've seen the show, I assume.
Yeah. If not, you should stop and watch it and then watch
it. Absolutely.
But one of the best parts later on was when Xavier finally comes back to Earth and he basically goes, "Hey, Magneto, wake the fuck up!" Because at this point, Magneto's like literally being a bad guy again, doing evil shit.
The Genosha thing, he goes into extremes, and he gets some guys on his side, including Rogue.
Certain people go, fuck this, we're going, yeah. The X-Men way of doing things isn't working, so.
Well, the X-Men way of doing things is always the hard road. It doesn't work. Of course, it doesn't work either, but we're not going to get into that.
Yeah. So they join up with Magneto and it goes on from there. But the scene I'm talking about is where Charles goes into Magneto's head. And it's a really I always love it when shows do this because you get to see like an in-depth version of that character, and the area in their head is at this bar where they were talking when they were younger.
Yep.
And there's a really cool there's a storm going on outside and water is getting higher and higher and higher.
Yep.
And it's supposed to mean something. I believe it's supposed to be like Magneto's like anger and hatred and all this other stuff. Put whatever you want in
like that. Yep.
And
the reason Xavier even dived into his head, we took from the Fatal Attraction storyline and pulled out Wolverine's exoskeleton.
Yeah. Which was something everyone was waiting for, even from like I believe probably from the old X-Men.
Oh yeah, I mean Fatal Attractions was like 94, 95, something like that. They borrowed that idea.
And if I'm not correct me if I'm wrong, it even looks just like the frame in the comic book.
It does. In Fatal Attractions, after Magneto does that's something so horrifically evil, beyond the pale for Magneto even.
Oh, it's painful.
Xavier gets so pissed off that he goes into Magneto's head, sound familiar, and literally shuts him off.
Yep.
Now, he doesn't quite do that here, but here's the thing. Remember how I mentioned this connects to Onslaught? Xavier doing that and connecting to Magneto, the evil in Magneto and the evil in Xavier merge together in the back of Xavier's head, and that eventually creates Onslaught.
Oh, that makes sense. So these actual events are going to probably connect in season 2 to make Onslaught.
If
he's going to be the big bad.
I would have said yes. If we recorded this literally 2 weeks ago.
New information.
There is new information. courtesy Geekdom 101. I'm gonna shout out my buddy, but he had a video put up recently where the news came out that they're not doing the things that they were planning on doing for season 2.
Oh, well, okay.
This has something to do with the controversy of the showrunner Bo DeMaio, who got booted due to inappropriate behavior. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And because he's gone, they've delayed season 2, and B, it sounds like they're not going to go with the original plan was Onslaught and the Age of Apocalypse storyline, which we had the time travel stuff, so that makes sense. But apparently that's been axed, at least allegedly. This is rumor mill stuff, so it's not like confirmed one way.
Wait, also, let's put this out there. Sometimes people in Hollywood say shit gets axed, and really it's just to surprise you that they're really going that direction.
Yeah, so like, I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope the news drop is wrong about this, because honestly, I would love to see Onslaught. I'd love to see Age of Apocalypse. Those are two of the big comic book storylines I was reading in the X-Men comics in the 90s.
Look, this is how I'm going to put it. You can ignore and pretend someone doesn't exist for doing atrocious things in real life. You can't ignore and pretend things don't exist in a comic book.
Yep.
When it's been written, especially when there's a fandom behind it.
Well, and we've like I said, we borrowed storylines already. Like, we even had Operation Zero Tolerance with Bastion, which we haven't even talked about, but man, they nailed that. That was like exactly 1-to-1 almost.
The new characters that came in, the guy that can fix things, I can't remember his name.
Forge was actually in the original comic, original cartoon. He's from the comics. He was in the original cartoon in the future scene.
Okay, well, all I gotta say is bravo, good job with that guy.
No, Forge was great.
The fact that at one point Storm loses her powers and he kind of helps her.
Yep, that's from a comic book storyline as well, and it's dang good, well adapted.
So what all the things they've adapted into this were like well done.
Oh yeah, well, and that's just like the original series. They adapted out of order, all over the place, and bits and pieces were changed, but it works really well with what's already established and where they go with it. It is very much an X-Men animated series vibe. They kept the way it feels like. Yeah, this is what they would have done.
Well, how did it end? What was the ending to this? I can't remember.
So at the very end, after we've dealt with Magneto in his mind and stuff.
Yeah.
Asteroid, the new Asteroid M for the third time, is crash landing to Earth, and they're trying to stop it, and they do, but they are time warped out of it after they.
Oh, that's right.
And half of the two of them end up in the far future. Scott and Jean Grey end up in the far future, where Apocalypse rules. And everyone else is in the far past, and they meet En Sabah, the past version of Apocalypse, before he became Apocalypse.
Apocalypse before Apocalypse. Before Apocalypse.
Yes. Well, En Sabah, he was a leader of men. He was an emperor of sorts.
So yeah, and it was a really good ending. It's I know
it's really good.
That
it needs.
I wanted to see more.
Us on the cliffhanger.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more.
Cliffhanger needs more. It does, and they were working on a season 2. So it's coming eventually.
Yeah, it well, like you said, that's probably been pushed back for whatever reasons.
Well, with the whole controversy with Bo DeMaio and everything.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But
honestly, I will get it, and I'm sure it'll be good. I really hope they can keep the Onslaught and Age of Apocalypse stories. I mean, they're going to be adapted as you do, but I want to see them. I want to see what they do with them.
So I'm not going to lie. I went into it with an open mind, but I also didn't have high expectations for a few reasons. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of the original series. I didn't really watch it, but going into it, I remember you telling me it was really good. You kept telling me you should watch it.
I started telling you that when the Gambit episode aired.
Yeah. So then I started watching it, and I think I binged it in like 3 days.
Yeah, well, I was watching it as it came out.
Yeah, but like if I were to give it a rating 1 out of 10, it's definitely a 9. It was good.
9 sounds about right. Like, I'm not going to give it a perfect score, but it's all blood.
Yeah, so it was pretty good. It was entertaining. There's a lot worse shows to watch on Disney Plus.
Oh, absolutely. I'd actually say it's the best show that came out on Disney Plus this year.
This year, yeah. Or if you guys like the expertise of the fella next to me here, he's got his own podcast himself. I've been telling him to get one, to do it for years now, and he finally followed my advice. I was like, hey, you need to...
I have you in my special thanks on my podcast every week for
So-
that very reason.
So tell us about your show there, okay?
Sure. So I've got my own little podcast, like Nerds and New Sexy Entertainment. It is on primarily on YouTube. I do the video editing fun. It's called Simuldub Saints. We talk about simuldubbed anime.
Yeah.
Me and my friend Archangel. Well, I'd say
He's-
your friend.
He's been here too. He's been on the show. He was on
Oh
for
yeah,
the.
he has.
He joined us for the Sea of Thieves episode.
That's right. He was here. So if you guys see the Sea of Thieves episode, that's Archangel. He and I are co-hosts of the Simuldub Saints. We've talked about Simuldub shows. Simuldubs are, for those that don't know, are anime that has aired in Japan, and usually the dub hits like within 2 weeks. Sometimes the same day, which is real fun.
Which is why it's called Simuldub.
Yes, and that's what we're called, the Simuldub Saints. It's a double joke. A, I was looking for fun alliteration, and B, we're both lapsed Catholics.
There you go.
So it's just a fun little joke.
Well, I was gonna ask you where the Saints part came in. I think you and I talked about that in the past.
There were a couple of different names that we were throwing around. We were looking for the fun alliteration, so double S's.
Yeah.
Just that one sounded fun, and it also had the fun of, that being the case for me and Ark. It kind of fit.
Okay.
But we start every season with a seasonal overview, what simuldubs are going to be airing in the season, which we'll be doing again soon because fall 2024 is weeks away.
Yeah, and they have some pretty good guests, and they talk about, of course, anime, and we love anime here at Nerds New Sex.
Oh yes, we talk about anime all the time.
That's your thing. If you're like me and like in a rut, sometimes you're like, I don't know what I want to watch. It's always good to go to like something like that, a podcast like that, and learn about something either you didn't know about or maybe you knew about and weren't sure about.
Well, and then the whole reason we started this was I was looking at what I could talk about anime in general, because I could talk about anime for days.
Yeah.
I'm a dub watcher primarily. I'll watch subbed if I have to, but I primarily watch dubbed.
I don't like to read, damn it. That's me. That's me. I don't want to have to fucking read a fucking movie. Fuck that. That's stupid.
But no one was really talking about simuldubs. Like, I can do that, and so here we are.
That
is on primarily on YouTube because I put in little visual jokes here and there, and it's
yeah.
But we also, if you prefer your podcast in the audio format, we do have a podcast up on Spotify Podcasts.
Yep. And because of that, it's on 11 different places.
It's on a whole bunch of different places.
Like ours. Yeah, it's you put it there, it goes everywhere. It's beautiful about Spotify.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to pitch?
Well, if you're looking for a fun podcast, I'm also frequently on the Non-Faithful podcast.
So, guys, we'll see you next week. Till then, we want you to stay nerdy.
Stay sexy.
Always.
Always.